Welcome back, it's your boy T Hill for Gamerswagger.com. I'm about to drop the review for Asura's Wrath. So, the premise of the story is you are Asura, one of the 8 guardian generals, fighting the Goma, which is this impure infection that's plaguing the world of Gaea and the poor, innocent people of Shinkoku. Pretty much, you are fighting with your 7 brethren to put down the Goma infection, and it starts off crazy. It's just epic scale fight, and from the offset of the game, there's this huge turn of events. Asura is betrayed, his wife is murdered, and his daughter Mithra is captured and taken captive by his comrades in arms, or ex-comrades. So that is the premise of the game. You're out on a revenge mission to take back your daughter and get some payback for all the wrongs that they've done to you. Asura is just full of rage, full of fire, and he's ready to bust some crap and just knock some chins out. The gameplay in Asura's Wrath is so different from what you're used to. It's in the hack and slash genre, but it is not the typical cookie cutter type of game. Most hack and slash games really focus in on deep combat, and the story is secondary. In Asura's Wrath, the story and the combat are interwoven through very subtle but constant use of QuickTime events. Now, some people may shy away from QuickTime events, but I actually found that these enhanced and blurred the scenes of what is game design. I enjoyed the break from the norm. It was a different experience. The combat's there. It breaks down to pretty much regular combos, heavy punches, charged attacks, dodges, finishing moves, projectiles, and a lock-on system. That's pretty much the breakdown of the, if you're going to just say the bare bones of the combat. But the combat scenes are very reminiscent of an anime and manga, which is a lot of the inspirations that, CyberConnect 2 and Capcom brought into the development process of Asura's Wrath. So, in animes, the combat scenes with the lesser known characters, the infantry, the grunts, are fleeting and small. So, those fights, rightfully so, should be small in scale and less just repeat waves. Most hack and slash games, and games in general, that have a conflicting nature with you and your opposition, throw wave after enemy at you. In Asura's Wrath, it cuts that fat out and says, if this is going to be here, it's got to have a purpose. This combat piece has to have a purpose, and that's exactly what Asura's Wrath does. It cuts the fat. Now, on top of those small combat scenes, there's boss battles. And the boss battles really do play up the combat mechanics and the epic scale. And the way the epic scale is brought to life is through, cinematic, camera angles, and QuickTime events. So as you're building your gauge meter to do your combat, once your gauge meter is reached, you can press R2 if you're playing with PlayStation 3 version, and it will trigger this QuickTime event that pushes the story along, but also keeps you engaged and holding your controller extremely tight, because you don't know when a button prompt is going to come up. You don't know when you're going to get thrown into another traditional combat portion of the game. So you always are very aware of what's going on in the story, very aware of what's going on in the combat. Also, on top of the total finishing moves and the gauge meter, there's an overheat meter, so you can't just spam heavy attacks over and over. You have to wait for them to recharge, because even though Asura is a demigod, he's actually more of a robot, a kind of cyborg, and using those powerful moves overheats him, so you have to wait for that to recharge and for you to cool down so you can use another one. But there's also a countering system, so as people attack you, a button prompt will come up, and like many traditional games, you'll be able to then activate a counter move. Or, if somebody's laying down on the ground, you can launch a power attack type of move, which has a cinematic flair and really just keeps the cinematic elements involved in the gameplay, so that way it's not just mashing buttons or having a deep knowledge of this extended combo tree. It takes those kind of concepts and throws it on its head. There are unlockables. So in each mission, the way the story and gameplay breaks down is that every one of the chapters is broken up into 5 episodes. It pretty much breaks down into 18 episodes throughout the game. And in between each one of those gameplay pieces is an interlude, because these are like an anime episode. So there's an introduction, a preview, an interlude, and credits in between each one of those, which I enjoy because games don't do this. And the few that have, I enjoyed those experiences. And it was a different change of pace from what we're used to. It wasn't just a straight shot, linear path. It was broken up into really, really well crafted segments where you take them in portions. Just like if you were to watch an episode of TV of any one of your favorite shows, one episode, the next week you're going to get kind of what led up to that, or preview to the next episode. And that's one of the things that play out. But how well you perform with those quick time events, how well you do in the combat sequences, actually unlocks rankings and bonuses. So higher rankings unlock specific bonuses. Using specific gauges that alter your stats unlock additional content. It even goes as far as unlocking a hidden ending, which increases the replayability of the game. Graphics. The graphics in this game are stellar. I love the art direction. It is very unique. There's nothing like it. It's kind of a Eastern Tibetan styled art mixed with cyborgs, and it's, based on a mythology that hasn't really been done. And the way that CyberConnect 2 crafted it is very unique to even what that mythology has. So it's a unique experience, but the art lends itself so well and crafts these amazingly iconic characters. Yasha and Asura in particular are just very, very vivid image characters. Characters like Wizen and Sergei, and even Deus, Carlo. I can't help but say that every single character that was in this game, even from the regular enemies, they all have so much personality. And the set pieces that these characters are thrown into are just epic in scale and have some great, stellar detail, fine detail. And that shows in the character clothing, the facial designs, the tattooing, the patterns that are on them, even the moves that they use are all so stylized, detailed, and just have a wide variety of character. The color palettes in this game are just wide-ranging, from snowy plains to cyborg blue hues with green hues, desert plains with just brown tones. The Goma, which is the infected, they have a red, like kind of carnage, symbiotic virus going through them, and that's such contrast to the people of Shinkoku, which are just humanoids, and even them from the demi-gods that make up the 8 guardian generals, which have a very cybernetic look. So there's a very distinct and unique world that all is pulled together so well with the art direction. The cinematic flair for each one of these set pieces is just so high that some of the scenes have an on-rail type of shooter experience, and those are more to capture the grand experience of the game. Destroying huge battleships, going up against Vlitra, which is this huge monster, and bursts forth from a Gaea, this huge planet. And these scenes are captured like no game. Even the Titans in God of War 3 pale in comparison. One scene has you fighting Wizen, who grows to be the size of a planet. These are the scope and level of detail and passion that is brought into the art direction. The sound in this game is phenomenal. you have some of the best sound, enjoyable sound, and like so reflective of the anime culture. Things like the flexing of muscles, the twisting of bodies, the just clenching of fists is all captured and recreated amazingly in Asura's Wrath. And that is very rare that games do that and capture that type of experience in a game, period. I mean, the flexing of muscles is usually kind of considered a joke, but the way it's incorporated in Asura's Wrath is just amazing. I loved it. There's also just these brilliant voice acting brought to life. Now, everyone knows Asura for his shouting, his yelling, and that's what was shown off, but that's the shallow end of the experience. There's characters like Yasha and Sergei that have a lot more personality and depth to them. And that's not saying that Asura doesn't have personality, but there is more to the meat of this than just shouting and yelling. Sergei in particular is this demented, psychopathic, death-loving individual that is brought to life just brilliantly. And it's enjoyable that each one of the characters has so much distinct personality, and the narrative and the voice acting lends itself perfectly to it. The sound and score of the game, you